Before we start this mind-blowing episode with my friend, Dr. Sean O'Mara, I wanted to offer you a free metabolic assessment. Now, at Optimize Your Body, we've created this tool for clients, but we need a few testers. This metabolic score that you're going to get is then going to tell you exactly what path to take to get the fastest results possible, whether your goal be fat loss or build a muscle. And it's also going to show you how to optimize your metabolic health. All you've got to do is click the link below this video in the show notes, and it's yours. Let's go. Ladies and gents, really excited to have Dr. Sean O'Mara on again. We had amazing feedback from the last podcast we did last year. Thanks again for coming on, Sean. I'd love you to just introduce yourself to the audience for people who've been sleeping under a rock. Most people know you by now.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Martin. It's we had a great time last year when we were together on your show, and I'm looking forward to our discussion today. So, by training, I'm a formally trained emergency medicine doctor. I trained in a civilian hospital, and I did my specialty in emergency medicine in an Army medical center in San Antonio, Houston, called Fort Sam Houston Brooke Army Medical Center. And I did a 4-year residency in emergency medicine and absolutely loved practicing as an emergency medicine doctor. But like many doctors, I fell apart. And today, from insights from learning about why I fell apart, and then importantly, how I was able to recover from that, I became a researcher. And I was introduced to another researcher, Dr. Zhang, who's an MD, PhD here in the United States. And Dr. Zhang told me about this dangerous fat inside that I didn't know anything about. And he was very passionate about it, saying, you really need to find out how much visceral fat you had. And so I agreed to go over to his clinic, his research facility, and get scanned to learn about, see how much visceral fat. And it was super terrifying to me. I was like, God, getting scanned and seeing inside. But fortunately, when I was scanned, I'd done the right things, and I had almost like no visceral fat. So they were both, him and his partners were really excited about how healthy I was. So that led me to even think more about, what I did being beneficial. And so I started studying visceral fat. And from my research efforts into visceral fat, I learned about other dangerous depots, these collections of fat inside the body. So now I like to lecture, go around the United States, and I hope to be able to go around the world. I'm actually going to be going to South America this weekend for a week. I'll be down there in Costa Rica.
Australia, Sean. Make sure you let me know. Yeah, you're going to be down here soon. I know you are.
Oh yeah, when I get to the land down under, I will let you know in advance, Martin.
Great.
So these 4 depots, these 4 collections of fat, most people don't know anything about it. They might know a little bit by reference to visceral fat, because it is kind of picking up in the social media space. People are starting to talk about it. Still not physicians. It's very interesting to me that it's usually health coaches and other people are aware of it, or PhDs, but you almost never hear an MD or a DO, which are physicians in our country, either medical doctors or doctors of osteopathy, talking about visceral fat. But really, it's starting to catch on, and I wish more consumers or patients that deal with doctors would get them, ask them questions so that it starts at least become on the forefront of their mind, and they start researching it themselves, because it's not taught in medical school. So maybe let's get into what those 4 fat depots are with this example here. How's that showing up, Martin? Can you see it good?
Yes, crystal clear.
I can bring it a little closer.
That's even better.
Okay, so visceral fat is the fat inside the abdomen. So we're looking at a cross section of the abdomen like this, like you saw somebody in half with their body in half with a big buzzsaw. So this is the belly button right up there. So the front anterior aspect, and these are their back muscles when they go through a scanner laying down on their back. So gives you kind of an orientation to your audience that's watching. And on an MRI, fat shows up as white. So when you see something white in, it's going to be fat or liquid like water or something. But this is the center part here is all visceral fat. And it's called visceral fat because it surrounds the viscera. The viscera are your organs inside. So your abdominal organs, your intestine, your large intestine, your colon, your gallbladder, liver, and stomach, and things like that. So this fat is surrounding all that. And the problem with this fat is it's highly inflammatory. So it has both a local influence, meaning it will cause inflammation by extension directly to things it's up against, but it's also systemic because it has a blood supply, and it will contribute to that, to your system, your physiology, by leaching out these inflammatory molecules that travel throughout the body and cause inflammation, disease. So when we study just this one fact, visceral fat, in 6,000 people, and we surveyed them for their chronic condition, what kind of chronic disease they had, as we helped them eliminate visceral fat, and really in proportion to how much they eliminated, we saw improvement in their conditions. So the more they improved it and for longer, the more their conditions went away, either completely or at least substantially. So it just blew my mind, the direct relevance that visceral fat has to all forms of chronic disease. And this was in 6,000 people that we scanned. So that's the first area of fat, and we'll call it 4 bad fats. And I use an analogy for horsemen, okay? They're like bad guys. And it's best to understand, too, that they have these guns that shoot, okay? The molecules, the inflammatory molecules are what cause the secretory effect of this fat, is what causes the problem. So were I just to open up, your abdomen and put a bunch of visceral fat in, you won't detect any immediate change. It's as those inflammatory molecules get released inside your abdomen and spread throughout your body, that your whole appearance and all your physiology slowly, very slowly changes, so slow that you don't detect it. You can't feel the gunshots. They're just very slow. So this is the first one. The second one, on MRIs, muscle shows up as dark. So these dark structures are the muscles. And in the muscles, you see white, and that is another bad type of fat called myosteatosis, or fatty muscle replacement, where literally your muscles start to get replaced with fat. And it's basically marbleized muscle inside humans, like a marbleized piece of steak. Muscles in the human body can get marbleized. These are the erector spinae muscles. And you can see all that fat beginning to invade, infiltrate, and replace the beautiful muscles you have in your back. And then one consequence of that is your back starts to get crooked because your back muscles can't keep them straight anymore. So you want to be cognizant of the presence and detect this inflammatory fat in your muscles, so your muscles don't become inflamed and fall apart, develop sarcopenia, and loss of performance. And it's really the sole reason that older people can't get out of a chair without assistance anymore, because of all the fatty contribution, the loss of that mass, the effect of the inflammatory molecules destroying the functionality and density and mass of those muscles throughout their body. It's every muscle. So you tend to think, well, that's why you can't walk. Well, there are other things you can't do. You can't use the muscle that's around your anus. It falls apart and it starts leaking, and you need diapers. And that muscle is inflamed and flabby and floppy, and it just doesn't do the job. And the first sign I will tell your audience is the sound of gas being released when you urinate. So if you're starting to pee and gas is being released, that's really the first sign that these fatty infiltrates are starting to get in to your pubic rectalis muscle, and now gas is leaking out. So if that's happened to you, get an MRI scan, work with somebody who's knowledgeable about visceral fat and myosteatosis, and really write that word down, myosteatosis, MYOSTEA steatosis, TOSIS. It's a big one. But myosteatosis was recently identified as having, when it's present, it increases, it doubles your risk of mortality relative to an obese person. So obese people don't live long, good lives, but with this fatty infiltration of your muscles, it doubles the mortality. So when you see the white inside here, you'll always see white in the muscles when we see that. So that's the second area of fat. The third one is a component of your subcutaneous fat. So lots of people have question about subcu fat. Is it good? Is it bad? If you listen to the bodybuilders, they think it's really bad.
So let me, this is narcissistic, right? But if you can see my abs, you probably can't. I saw, you can't really see them there, can you?
Oh yeah, I can see them.
Yeah.
That's
So
not
basically,
good.
I know you did a post before and I was panicking. I was thinking, man, maybe I haven't got enough, because I saw you do a post about shredded abs, and you mentioned about, subcutaneous fat is actually kind of important as well. So do you think like you could be too lean?
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll tell you about the bad subcu fat that you don't want to have, but there's a type of subcu fat you do want to have. So there's two types underneath your skin. So when you grab a bunch of fat underneath your skin, you're going to grab both deep and subcutaneous fat. But the ratio is all the difference. We're learning about ratios. You want more good and less bad. And right now, we really, as a lay people, just don't know this. They think all fat is bad, and so they lose it. And bodybuilders are chief among that. And they mostly lose their good protective superficial fat. And we'll show you that after we show you this third bad player. So there's this black line. Does it show up okay on on the camera, Martin, that black line?
Yes, I can see that.
Okay. And then it goes around here and back around here. It's a little bit darker there. And so it separates all of the subcutaneous fat into two compartments. So this is the deep, deep to the membrane, scarpus fascia, to the deep muscles. And superficial, this is really bad because it acts just like visceral fat and myosteatosis. So it's releasing all those inflammatory molecules, shooting the secretory inflammatory molecules out, destroying your tissue. And then for the ladies out here, it's I'll start with the men. For the men, a big target of this is your penis. Ooh, drooping, okay? That gets your attention. Of course, with that, equal in proportion to the loss of erectile functionality is going to be declining muscle tone and performance and everything. Your tennis game is going to go to pot. Your ability to play soccer, football, rugby, whatever it is going to start deteriorating in proportion to the influence of all the secretory elements coming from these three bad areas. Now, there's a fourth one, and we'll show it a little bit later. It's actually fat around the heart. Maybe I'll just pull it up really fast to give an example, because it's also an important thing. So these are our heart scans. So I'll move it away. And this guy here has a right lung, left lung. In the middle of his lung is his heart. And there's this big chunk of fat surrounding the whole heart in the mediastinum area. And then he cut out carbohydrates. And in 13 weeks, he dramatically reduced that heart fat. So I like to show this example because it's an example of the fourth bad area type of fat in your body: organ fat, ectopic fat, cardiac fat. It's known by different terms, but those four types of fat, you don't want any of them in your body. Best way to identify them is not by a DEXA scan, but doing an MRI. They show up in a CT. So anybody that's listening, and probably mostly women, gets abdominal CTs for a variety of reasons. You can see these four areas of fat in an abdominal CT. So, consider going to your doctor and getting your abdominal CT or an MRI if you had it in the past, shared with you on a CD disc. And you can find a doctor to work with, but our service in America, if anybody's listening around the globe, we're now reading this and doing it as a service globally because nobody else in the world is doing this. So if they bring it to us, we can read it, interpret it, put them in a program, and we could talk about that down the road. But really, you want to find out about it and then learn how to get rid of it. So the one remaining fat depot that I want to talk about that I just briefly mentioned is superficial subcutaneous fat. So heads up about this one because the system doesn't want you to be aware of it. So it's from that black line again, Martin, scarpus fascia to the skin. So it's superficial. And that fat is protective. It's beneficial. It's a good guy. It shoots guns too, but it shoots bullets, a molecule called adiponectin, ADIPONECTIN, adiponectin. If you're listening today, please, please, please Google it. Jump on ChatGPT and start reading about adiponectin, and you'll find out how beneficial it is. And you're saying, my God, why aren't the doctors talking about this? Well, they don't know because they're not taught these fats. They're not taught things that actually optimize human beings. We're taught things in medical school where we can make money for the system. That's what's going on. So adiponectin is something you're going to have to find out for yourself. But because you're fortunate enough to follow Martin, you're going to get awareness of it today just by listening, and you can research it. But you want to have that protective layer. So bodybuilders that shred themselves of fat lose that protective nature. Now they get good muscles, but because they don't have that adiponectin, they increase their risk for heart attacks, strokes, cancer, diabetes. And women who do liposuction, these procedures to get rid of fat on their stomach, they lose their protective nature. And it's very interesting. A lot of women would message me after they had liposuction, and they said, it was the one decision I regret the most because I got sick so much longer and afterwards a lot more. And I got all these medical conditions. And the one thing that surprised me was they told me their faces became less attractive. And so our health is revealed by our faces. So you get this liposuction procedure ostensibly, intentionally to look better, and it makes your face less attractive. And so what adiponectin does is help protect you from these bad guys. So men get a bad erection and all sorts of chronic disease all over. Women get ugly faces.
So pretty women,
that.
It's not worth the trade-off.
No, it's not. So what I call it, when women get liposuction or women get six-pack abs, you know what their faces look like? They get dude faces. They start looking like men. Now,
Sean, on that point, I used to compete, didn't I, right, as a bodybuilder, and I saw it all backstage. The women and the guys is very unhealthy, of course, getting that low body fat. And obviously, adiponectin is called the fat.
Adiponectin.
See, we're running low, and we didn't look good.
If they maintain that, they'd have gorgeous bodies. If Big Pharma is going to try to figure out how to make adiponectin, then you could maintain a feminine face, a pretty face. But listen, if you're a woman and you keep a 6-pack abs, you might be able to get it for a short period of time, but eventually it's going to catch up to you and you're going to get a dude face, okay? And then guys, you know, are eventually going to get erectile dysfunction. All this massive muscle, and then they can't get it up.
Useless.
You know, so, yeah. So, and then they're on TRT and they're trying, you know, Cialis, the Viagra and all that stuff. It's not worth it. So maintain a protective layer of sub-Q fat. You showed your abs. I'm going to show mine. I'll get the camera down.
61 years old. Just for the audience who don't know, look at that. 61 years old.
I got a lean abdomen. And the other thing I can do is, I'll just show off for a little bit. I can do vacuum pose. I just found this out, you know, because they talked about it. I just learned that nobody does it.
For the internal, for the transverse abdominis, the muscles which wrap around your spine. This is such a part that I had to master on stage.
Yeah, so I'll show it to you. I have to stop talking to do it.
Yep. How can I readjust my camera? You can't really see my full thing here.
Yeah. Can you do vacuums pose?
I can, but I can't really show you. Here we go. The mic's in the way there. Let's have a look. Ready?
Yeah. Yep, you got it. Yeah, good job, Martin. So vacuum pose is something that you want to be able to do. And in middle age, it's almost impossible when you hit your 50s and 60s because of declining muscle tonicity and sarcopenia and the influence of these dangerous fats and the lack of adiponectin. So if you want to avoid chronic disease, you want to get rid of the 4 bad fats inside your body.
Before we go into that, I just want to mention, because you brought up such an amazing point then about the vacuum. I just want to say, Sean's been practicing now. For anyone who wants to get good at deadlifts, any movement you want to get good at in the gym, you want your waist to look smaller on the beach, practice the vacuum. Like type in tummy vacuum. I've got a video on my YouTube, but I'm glad you brought that up because it's literally, because the TVA, the transverse abdominis, which wraps around the spine, supports your spine. 80% of people get back issues. Do practice the vacuum. So thanks for that, mate. Anyway, four to fat. I wanted to touch on that.
Yeah, well, it's sad that I think they don't even include it in competition anymore, because the opposite of the vacuum pose is palumbolism. You've seen these guys with these big tortoiseshell abdomens bulging out, and they actually are starting to think it's an attractive look and to score these bodies better, but they're filled with disease. You know, we recently just talked about Chase Irons, who's a bodybuilder, a very respected bodybuilder. And lots of credit to Chase, because about 2 weeks ago, he got an MRI and he was filled with visceral fat, but not as much visceral fat as he would have. He found me on May of this year and he got scanned in August, but he started doing fasting. He started doing sprints. He started eating fermented foods and he started eating the carnivore diet. So he went off carbs. And he had a dramatic, amazing improvement. We talked about his nose. He had a big inflamed nose and it got really lean. His face got lean, a lot more healthier looking. And so these bodybuilders have a large amount of visceral fat inside of them from the carbohydrates and the steroids, all the gear they take. And so Chase is self-admitted. He uses the term himself, abuser of gear, you know, steroids, testosterone replacement. He was like a huge list. I think he had like 10 products he was taking, like polypharmacy, just a huge amount of these
performance-enhancing drugs. Yeah, and a big production of them as well.
It's just not worth it. And he uses the term, it's just a mind warp, you know, body dysmorphia.
Yeah.
It's this desire to constantly get.
I had the same issue. I had exactly the same issue I've talked about before because I competed at a high level. And I would check my abs, no lie, Sean. I would look at my abs in the mirror 50 times a day. I still do it now, probably like, I don't know, 10 times. But I would get up in the middle of the night and I'd be checking my abs. And it gets really, because you're being compared against people on stage, right? And everything is on aesthetics. And it becomes, you have to be obsessed as well to get to the level I'm sure that guy got to. But I never took steroids or nothing, luckily for me. So, but yeah, either way, it's a problem, you know?
Yeah. So I think, you know, ancestrally, Martin, that our species really probably needs to be, because the end of the spectrum when it comes to body dysmorphia in bodybuilders is the anorexia. No muscle, no fat. And it's really a triad, because the other extreme of it is the obese person, who lacks insight about their obesity or even likes being heavy and starting to like this. We're seeing it ubiquitously all over. And now my clients suffer from encounters with obese people that are used to seeing other obese people. And then when they see my clients, they go, wow, you're really skinny. I'm really worried about you. So we don't even know from a species standpoint how people are supposed to look today. So you want to be right in the middle. You want to have a good amount of muscle, but not too much. And you want to have a good amount of fat, but the right kind of fat, superficial subcutaneous fat, not the 4 bad ones. And you certainly don't want to be without any fat at all. So kind of right in the middle. And, there was a early Tarzan when I was a little kid. I'm quite got a few decades on you. I'm 61. But when I was growing up, there was the Tarzan show was played by an actor named Johnny Weissmuller. He did not have a 6-pack. He had muscles, but he had this layer of sub-Q fat over him. And today, Hollywood and social media, mainstream marketing, they've all kind of promoted this figurine that doesn't have sub-Q fat, superficial sub-Q fat, and it's dangerous. So you want to be aware of these 4 bad fats. Look at the good one. And so it's the appearance of faces. The bodybuilding competition, you can be ugly as AF, just so ugly. And you can win that competition if your body looks good. But your face really displays your health. So you want to look handsome as AF, and you want to be pretty as AF if you're a woman.
You look like a vampire. Like you look like a vampire on stage. But you have the spray tan, right, Sean, to try and cover it up.
Yeah.
But even still, you're still looking like, you've just escaped from like a Russian labor camp or something. It's not a good look,
Yeah, like a monster of some kind.
Yeah.
So you really want you want the whole package to be evidencing an example of health. And the faces are really important because, ancestrally, we would, be wearing animal skins and we couldn't always see our bodies, but our faces would be revealed. And the healthier the face, the more you can influence the people that follow you. So the future is going to be political leaders that are going to be paying to biologically optimize themselves to have the most influential face. But now, if you go through the American voting elections back to 1960, when John F. Kennedy was running for election, I went through and I picked the healthiest looking faces, and every single election going back for 60 years, the healthiest face won the election. The healthiest, the most attractive looking face. So nobody talks about that. And so interesting, I'll show you this in just as an example.
Hey, Sean, whilst you're loading that up, just a quick one on muscle, right? Because some research is now pointing to the fact that while we know strength is one of the most important things for longevity, physical strength, but also having muscle mass on your body. Because what they find, I think a lot of people who've got type 2 diabetes, I think it was like 30 or 40% of them are not overweight, but they've got a lot of visceral fat, obviously, and they're under muscled. So having muscle on your body and strength is extremely important, right, Sean? On top of,
Yeah, we'll show that. I'll return to that scan.
Awesome.
So here's President Trump in 2020, and then President Trump 2024. His face is less inflamed. President Biden 2020, President Biden 2024, his face is more inflamed. So the office of the presidency increases stress and cortisol and causes more visceral fat and declining appearance. So it will be interesting to see this guy's face with Vice President Harris and see who has the healthier face, because I think that's going to be a big play. And I know a lot of diehard politicians won't agree with it, but it doesn't matter what you think if you're a political hack. What matters is what the man and woman that are voting for these people think. And I'll tell you what they're thinking. Who's going to help us bring home the most meat in the hunt? Who's going to help me score the most meat? You know, fix the economy, keep us protected, all those kind of stuff. So these faces become important for all walks of life. So if you're listening
the face, just real quick. Last time we talked about the limbic ring around the eye. And then there was, and the nose you've mentioned. I know it's a subconscious thing, right? We're not even aware a lot of the time. We're just subconsciously attracted to health as humans. What would you point out of the face there? So you mentioned the inflammation.
Yeah. So look at his nose, how it became more inflamed here.
Yeah.
So you hear how it's leaner. So the noses and the eyes, they're more vital. And now they look less vigorous and less vital. And so, and then the complexion, much healthier, more color, and now pasty. It looks like somebody from a nursing home. And then same thing with Trump. He goes the opposite direction. His face is inflamed. Now it has better color, better tone, better shape. And so these features in this face. But maybe what I'll do is just show this example in these photographs.
I'd be interested to know what Trump looked like in 2016 when he won it. He was probably leaner, wasn't he? Probably a bit healthier.
Yeah, no, I think
it took its toll on him, didn't it?
He had some. I think he was leaner than he was in 2020 because the office of the presidency made it harder. But here's an example. My Wild Adventure is a Instagram account that this guy was on, and he did I think a 7-day fast, and he goes from his face here to here. And look how much he improved his facial appearance in a 7-day fast. So his eyes get wide open. Do you see how much more wide open they are? And he just looks a lot more vigorous and vital. So, and a lot less inflamed. So when you get rid of this visceral fat, which you can lose in an extended fast, like 7 days, might even been 10 days, then you really improve your appearance. So if you're a politician, or you're a trial attorney, or you're a consultant, or you're a social media influencer, and you got to go out and produce content, you want a low inflamed face, you want a low diseased face, you want to look like you can hunt really well, you want to look good, and you want to perform well. And so that will allow you to be a better influencer. And everybody needs to be a good influencer. Even grandmas have to influence their adult children and their grandchildren and their great-grandchildren. They have to be influential in their lives. And if you are a grandma or grandpa or a great-grandfather and you got a lot of disease, those little minds will look at you and dismiss what you say, because it looks like when you're unhealthy and diseased, pay no attention to me, I don't know how to live well, and I can't help you live better. But if grandma and grandpa look really good, fit and vigorous, those little minds will pay attention to grandma, grandpa. And if you're a trial attorney and you're giving, excuse me, your closing argument in front of your jury, and you want them to agree with you, you better look good, and you better have an optimized face. So a lot of my clients are trial attorneys, consultants, C-levels and corporations to be able to lead better and be more influential. And these fats take you down, and the good fat helps improve you. So awareness of these are really important.
Incredible, man. And that's really, look, that guy did a 7-day fast. And let's get on that. Let's transition to that, Sean. You mentioned lifestyle do's and don'ts, right? And you also mentioned nitric oxide, just to touch on that. In terms of a long fast will produce more nitric oxide. You mentioned sun, sauna, and HIIT training as well, right? So that's obviously an important piece.
Yeah, so nitric oxide was the subject of a 1992 Nobel Prize in medicine. And it's another one that the system doesn't want you to know about. Nitric oxide is this wonderful molecule that increases your blood flow and manages your cardiovascular system. So when it comes to health, I like to say it's blood flow, blood flow, blood flow. The better we can perfuse tissue, the better we can deliver nutrients and oxygen and keep tissues from being starved from these essential molecules that they need and dying and becoming, inflamed and oxidized. So nitric oxide is a big player in that. It comes from your endothelial cells, our chief site for those. And the healthier you get as a body, the more nitric oxide you make, and your capacity to make it. So 4 things I have seen to increase nitric oxide that you can do physically to improve your nitric oxide is, the maximum intensity exercise. So squatting, lifting heavy weights, in a brief period of time, but heavy, really maximum intensity workout.
Just a lot of people are going to wonder what you do. 15 minutes, 3 days a week, and you've done that for about 15 years, right? Just to clarify.
Yeah, about 15 minutes, and I'll take my shirt off because I haven't worked out.
I'm going to use a shirt off for the thumbnail, Sean, anyway, to get more views again.
About a week. So I'm 61 years old, no gear, no testosterone. I hardly work out, but it's how I live. There's so many other things than exercise. But when I exercise, it's like I'm fighting for my life. So the 2 things to keep you in the species, kept humans in the species the longest for survival, and determine how well you're going to thrive in life, is your ability to run, to sprint, to catch prey, and evade predators, oftentimes other humans, and how good you could fight, meaning how good you could kill prey, and how good you could defend yourself and a predator coming off of you. So fighting is
great tan as well, Sean. Great tan, much more tan than last time, mate. Looking like a picture of her. Thing is, it's the skin though, right? This is what I think when I look at you. You're in great shape, which is insane for 61. But the condition of your skin looks like the skin of
skin is
or
remarkably healthy. It doesn't look like an old person, and even my face. I don't have a lot of the wrinkles and these big, huge labial folds and big like crevices that most guys have in their 60s and stuff. And I just got really good healthy skin because I got really good blood flow. And I have a tan, I just go out in the sun a little bit and I get a tan. And then, what's interesting, I live in Minnesota. It's not a sunny, we're in the northern part of our country. But boy, I'm the darkest man in Minnesota in the wintertime because I don't lose my tan. It just stays with me. It's crazy how much color that I retain. So when you're really healthy, you have a lot of melanin and ability to through melanocytes to produce that melanin. So, and who can't, you might as well talk about the people who are really white in nursing homes, chronically diseased older people. You put them out in the sunshine, they'll just burn, but you'll never see them turn into this tan person if you forget to bring them back in there and they're, an Alzheimer's patient strapped in some kind of a chair and they're out there just, in their diapers and their sun is burning their body. They'll turn red and then it'll just go back to white, their capacity for producing melanocytes. So a tan is good. I know all the dermatologists are arguing with me, but if you're healthy, you're not going to burn. You're not going to develop, carcinogenic mutations and transformations into cancerous tissues. They had me terrified of this in medical school. I was like, dear God, I'm never going to go out in the sun. The sun predated humans. We're adapted to it. We evolved and we thrive to the extent that we get around the sun. There's lower levels of disease the closer you are to the equator. And they got us all terrified of the sun. They got us terrified of animal fat. They got us terrified of cholesterol, which we use to make, our cells and every membrane in our body. And the more of it you have, the healthier you are, and the lower your mortality. And they're going to have us terrified of water. You just wait and see.
What's next? I was going to say on that note as well, like we said off air, right, Sean? None of us I live in Australia, never use sun cream. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, why are you going to block all of that goodness? Yeah. That's going to make you look like Sean. You know what I'm saying? Why are you going to?
You produce your vitamin D to the extent that you get that. And also the microbiome, the collection of microbes that you have on you need that sun when they live on the outside. And so you're just not going to have the same metabolites produce them, and they protect your skin. And this is an interesting, I'll do a post on it sometime, my post, but how you smell your body, the odor you give is a signature for how much of a biological badass or how much you just suck at living if you stink. But if you live really well, do the right strategies, you're going to smell super good. I remember
Pheromones, pheromones. That's the thing.
Yeah. I remember this soldier once told me, there's female soldiers are saying, coming up and saying, why does that colonel smell so effing good? It's because I get these natural, molecules that, come out of my skin and signature to their primitive brains that I'm healthy. And, if you wash and use soap and you're doing chemicals and you're doing colognes and perfumes, you're just a paint job, a wrecked car, you're spray painting it, and, but you're diseased inside. So you want to heal, Martin, from the inside out. You want your skin, believe it or not, the skin, you say my skin looks good, and I would agree that those epithelial cells are as healthy outside as they are inside my gut. So the same cells that are on your skin outside are in the inner aspect of your small intestines, your stomach, your colon. They're epithelial cells. And so you really want to be healthy from the inside out. And it's interesting to me, that connection.
Yeah, that connection. And speaking of that connection, I'd like to just, because I know we've running out of time because you got something on after this. I was going to say the 6 things that you mentioned, the 6 kind of pillars you mentioned about losing visceral fat, no processed foods and no carbs, right? What about protein as well on top of that? Yeah,
so I recommend animal protein. I know the vegan community prefers get protein from plants, but it's just a lot more bioavailable if you get it in the most nutritiously dense food known to man, which is animal tissue. And so I recommend ruminants, that ferment grass and utilize their microbiome to create these healthy nutrients that we can't otherwise create, and we can get it from these fermenting ruminants, and we consume their flesh. So I follow the carnivore diet, and I recommend eating what I call the living carnivore diet, which is meat and microbes. Or the living carnivore diet is just basically eating meat, or not basically, it's eating meat with fermented foods. So like kimchi, kvass, sauerkraut, fermented ginger and carrot seeds, vegetables that have been traditionally passed on. Fermenting food was oftentimes thought of as just to preserve it, and it does, but it really does more than preserve food. It actually optimizes the vegetables and food into a better form. So it gets rid of carbohydrates, gets rid of oxalates, gets rid of lectins, and these other molecules that we're starting to find out that have a mildly toxic effect. So listen, you're never going to poison yourself to death eating a big enormous bowl of broccoli, but it's the cumulative effect of these other elements that are present in these vegetables over a period of time that cause inflammation. But if you take them and ferment them, it renders them into a better form, gets rid of those objectionable inflammatory molecules that ride along with it, and it also adds in these microbes. And so you eat fermented foods for their microbial contribution, not their nutrient. Because if you want a nutrient, all you do is eat meat. But here's my insight, and you're the first podcast to hear this. Why can't you just eat meat? Why are the carnivores? Why does me, Dr. Sean, say you can't just eat meat? It's because nobody in the past just ate meat. They would drink water from streams with these incredible microbes. They would hunt the animal, and they get the microbes off the hide in the fur. That's where microbes are stored, in animal fur, bird feathers, aviary feathers, and human hair. That's where microbes, because you go in the water and these microbes would wash off the skin, but when it stays in your hair, it's perfectly retained, and then it propagates all over. It's your signature of how awesome you are. And when we kill that prey, we would eat it. Even animals today, predators, rip through the hide. They're chewing on the fur and getting the fur, it's getting swallowed down in there, and it's making this contribution. That's why felines get fur balls. They're licking their hair, putting their microbes into their gut to facilitate their nutrition. And then once they're dead, those microbes don't have microbes anymore, they cough them up. And so animals have this behavior of contributing to their microbiome, and we're just too proud and mighty and clean. And so we have lost sight of the more primitive and fundamental basic ways of optimizing your microbiome. So that's why I advocate eating fermented foods. I advocate swimming in oceans and not getting out and taking a chlorine shower. Let the ocean microbes dry in your hair and in your body all over. You're going to smell like Adonis. If you got a girlfriend, she's going to be so turned on by the smell of those ocean microbes on you.
Oh, that's why my girlfriend's so turned on. Yeah, I go into Bondi Beach in the ocean there, and I never shower afterwards. That's the secret.
Yeah, man. Way to go.
I knew there was something, but it wasn't the abs. It was the smell from the ocean.
Yeah. Well, here's the interesting thing. I'm a surfer. I grew up surfing. About the age of 18, I started surfing. And one thing when you encounter surfers, and I still love talking to them and hanging out with the surfer community, if you never see a dedicated surfer who's fat, never, because they go into the water, they're constantly getting those microbes, and what are they doing? They're drinking it. They get wiped out, and you come up coughing, and you swallow this ocean water, and they're probably the only collection of humans drinking ocean water. Now, it's not volitionally, but it's by vocationally, from wiping out. And so I actually have my clients drinking ocean water, getting about a quarter cup of these awesome microbes in it. And that's why we're getting the best results in the world and getting rid of obesity, fighting the cravings of these bad foods, and making people awesome.
That's amazing. I was going to ask you on that as well. So you think in terms of stress, microbiome, we're on that topic now, right? So just to clarify, to optimize your microbiome, we're going to need those fermented foods and any other, because I know you mentioned last time, obviously avoiding ultra processed foods, because that's even one lick of an ice cream, like you said last time, completely change, even artificial sweeteners. So is there any other kind of, like, I know it's very complex with optimizing microbiome,
chlorinated water is a big no-no. People drink chlorinated water. They go to restaurants, they open up their kitchen sink and take a drink of water. And the chlorine has been tested on human cells. That's not where it causes cancer. Where it causes cancer is it disrupts the beneficial microbes that are part of your microbiome that protect you from cancer. And so it's attacking your protection against cancer in that form. And so there are many things besides chlorine. There's antibiotics, food preservatives, and chemicals of all kinds. So people come to me, do anywhere from 2 hour to as long as 3-day consultation experiences with me, and we take them through all these insights to get them to optimize their health, optimize their microbiome, get rid of these dangerous fat depots, and start optimizing their whole life.
And fasting as well, right, Sean? With extended fasting, the thing is, you've probably seen this yourself, is like a lot of people can't go a few hours without food, and then they're going to try and do like a week fast, which is probably not ideal, right, for most. Intermittent fasting, so I do daily, but how do you recommend that kind of order?
So I recommend people, if they don't have experience with fasting, just ease into it. It's sort of like sprinting. If you don't have experience sprinting, ease back into this. It's not something that you want to launch into head first, because if you try to do an extended fast and you don't have acclimation to fasting, then you're going to get quickly overwhelmed, and you're going to get fatigued, and you'll never go back into fasting. And it's one of my most important strategies. It's too important to allow people to do it improperly. So you want to work with practitioners, health coaches. If your doctor doesn't know how to do it, work with a great health coach, and work with them so you can learn about fasting. I like Dr. Mindy Pelz, P-E-L-Z. She does a lot on fasting. I'd like to get on her show and talk about fasting sometime. Hopefully get on her at some point. But and she's a chiropractor. But it's not taught to physicians, and so chiropractors and health coaches very often do a far better job at optimizing and improving people's lives than MDs and DOs do. So I think we could learn a lot by studying health coaches and our chiropractors that are in the practicing health arts and practices to improve people. And yeah, we're just too proud at the top. We physicians think that we know it all, but if we're so good, why after 30 years somebody going to a medical practice do they have more disease than being better? It's crazy. So look for doctors who look good and perform well. That's who you want to go to, and have gray hair. Don't go to the 20-year-old because he or she hasn't proven himself yet. You want to go to the gray-haired person.
The wisdom.
That's got experience, and if they look good after being 61 years of age, they know something.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, Sean, just to summarize then, right, everything we talked about, if you could have a chat with your older self, the worst version of yourself at your unhealthiest, and for the audience listening, the big rocks they need to focus on to drop those 4 types of bad fat and optimize their health and biome.
Yeah, so what did it for me, Martin, is very different than happened to most people, is I met a young guy, and he got me to stop eating carbohydrates and to eat meat and ferments. So I went really off of carbohydrates. I was also eating vegetables back then. It was like 2009. So I ate a lot of meats, vegetables, and no processed foods, and I ate fermented foods. And back in 2009, they really weren't that popular in the health space. Now they're catching on, and people finding out because they have such a amazing benefit. You watch, if you're listening today and you start eating these fermented foods, it's going to get rid of your cravings for bad stuff, and it'll start making you better. So kind of sum up what I did is I cut out processed foods. I started eating fermented foods. I started sprinting, and then I started using going outside in the sunshine. And so those things had a tremendous effect. Now I've found I do 48 things that I have people come to me. I could put it on the internet, but here's what they'll do. Everybody will criticize it. Nobody does it. They're not motivated. But when you come and get an MRI scan and you see that big chunk of fat around your heart, all this fat inside around your liver, and fat in your muscles, you're turning into marbleized steak, a piece of human Wagyu beef, and you got deep subcutaneous fat. Then you realize, hey, I'm in trouble, and I'm going to do those 48 things. And that's why we get the best results in the world, because we show people disease, what they don't think, they didn't know how diseased they were. Then we give them all those strategies and they do it, but not before. You got to get the scan. So I don't work with people that aren't going to get the scan because, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to try that. I don't think I have to do that. I don't think I'm going to have to do thousands of people we studied. And without that scan, they just don't think they're diseased and they won't do those strategies.
I love that.
So the last word I'd say, if you're interested, get a scan, look us up on the web, drshaunO'Mara.com, or another website you can get to me is growingbetterNotOlder.com. All one word, growingbetterNotOlder.com. We got this cool plan. You can work with us for 2 months. We get an MRI scan on you. We give you all those 48 strategies. If you find your own MRI and bring it to us, it's only $1,800 US dollars. If you we buy it for you, then we charge you $2,700, but you get 2 months of coaching. It's a great program. We don't just read these things. We want you to get better. So we make you go through this process to get rid of that disease. I know lots of people are disappointed and they just want us to be like, oh, they have doctors and read the study. But we have got to put you in a program to get rid of that disease, because it's not going to do any good just to tell you information if you're not going to get rid of it. So we charge a little bit more to do that, but you get a lot with it. 2 months of weekly coaching and get admission to my client group and the 48 strategies. It's a good deal. Check it out.
And the reality is, people have spent a lot of money getting themselves into a state of really poor health. Let's be honest, right? With the the foods they're eating, the lifestyle they're living. Don't lie to yourself. If you need to, that sounds incredible. That sounds incredible. I don't think you're going to get much better, really, value for your money, in terms of investing into your health, getting a scan so you know exactly where you're at and making the necessary changes. So growingbetter.older.com.
Ends the lie, stops the lie. You're not as healthy as you think.
Exactly. growingbetter.older.com. I'll add that to the show notes and the other stuff. Hey, Sean, thanks for your time, man. I know you got to go. Absolutely incredible. Thanks again for coming on, my man, for the second time.
Okay. All right, Mark. We'll see you again on another show, huh?
Speak soon, Sean. Bye, mate.